Good morning, campers, and welcome to Radio Camp Half-Blood, a Percy Jackson read-along podcast. I'm B.
And I'm Zach.
And this week, we read Percy Jackson, The Titan's Curse, Chapter 13. We visit the Junkyard of the Gods.
Oh my god, we're gonna get really scrapping today, aren't we?
Really scrapping. I feel like I kept picturing that scene. I feel like, is it in Stand By Me, where they go through the junkyard and it's like the specific dog that's trained to attack a certain part of somebody in the junkyard?
So for me, when I was thinking about this chapter, I was thinking of in Nightmare on Elm Street 4, the Dream Master. One of the dreams is they're stuck in basically like the junkyard planet. And it's just funny because cars are exploding. Freddy's a weird skeleton. It's so much fun. And there's a dog.
I feel like there's a lot of media that features junkyards. I'm like thinking like Toy Story 3 had a junkyard. Brave Little Toaster.
You mean the traumatizing scene in Toy Story 3?
Yes, the traumatizing scene where they're like about to be like incinerated. That scene. Yeah, just junkyards are kind of horrifying. I feel like just a lot of children's media uses them to be like a horrifying setting.
I love junkyards because for me, people throw away like useless things that I find as treasures. I'm not a weird like hobo that likes collecting scrap metals and stuff, but once you get past the tetanus, it's a wonderful place.
Get past the tetanus, you know how you could just like will yourself to get over it, you know? Pull yourself up by your bootstraps and don't get tetanus.
But B, it builds up the immune system and clears that lockjaw of yours.
Yeah, I think maybe the only non-scary example of a junkyard I can think of in media is like in The Iron Giant with that beatnik guy who makes all the sculptures. That was very much like what college was like for me, is people would just go dumpster diving to make sculptures. There was like a specific sculpture dumpster that they were just like, throw all your stuff in here and people will, like, there was like a step stool so people can dive into it.
Not saying that I have done this before, but when you're doing theater and you have a budget of $20, the junkyard is the greatest place to go to, except when, of course, there's junkyard dogs and weird homeless people that are trying to attack you. That's the worst part about it, but junkyards are so cool.
That sounds like a video game. Well, we'll find out about people attacking people in junkyards in this chapter. A lot happens.
No joke, a lot happens in this chapter. It is one of those chapters where...
I think I was not ready.
It's one of those chapters where you're reading it and it's like, oh my god, it's still going? You would think there's like a break.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it's sort of split into like maybe 2 or 3 sections that I could have easily seen as like separate chapters almost. Like there's the whole thing.
So for me, when it came to
where they like show up in the
For me, when it comes to the structure of this chapter, I was looking at this like easily you could have had the chapter with Aphrodite as one part, like I meet the love goddess or something like that, or like I get a ride in a limo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then the next one would be we visit the junkyard of the gods.
Yeah, and even the Junkyard of the Gods part, I think I wasn't expecting it to be so high stakes, and then I was like, oh, of course they're in the desert, and like even I like my brain clocked that when they described the desert, but I just kind of like was so distracted by all this other stuff going on because I think Rick Riordan kind of does like this bait and switch thing where he mentions the desert setting first, then he mentions all the Aphrodite stuff, and then I think you get so distracted by that then when you see all the junkyard stuff, then you're like not thinking fully about like the setting exactly, and you're like, oh right, yeah, someone gets lost in the desert, forgot about that as the prophecy, yeah, should have remembered that.
The best way to describe it, B, is a lot of misdirection in this chapter because there's a lot of setup from previous chapters, like the throwaway line when Bianca's talking like last chapter about the hotels.
Right. Oh, that too. Yeah, I totally even forgot about that. There's so much happening. I didn't even remember that part too. Yeah, we get all sorts of backstory about Bianca. Like, it's very stressful. The whole thing is very stressful.
Yeah, Rick Riordan's pretty much a magician in the situation of this. There's so much misdirection and there's just little setups. That's why when I was reading this again, I was thinking of his other series, Tres Navara, where pretty much a little clue builds up into a much sinister plot. Because once again, Rick Riordan was a detective novelist before he wrote Percy Jackson.
I could definitely see that, especially in certain chapters.
Also, when it comes to this chapter, also when it comes to reading this, is that the world is very like well-rounded because they don't just have like in most books like the Lotus Casino would just be a throwaway thing.
Right.
Here
Yeah,
it's
that
actually
was.
built up and establishes the world. Like it's good world building.
I found that very satisfying that the Lotus Casino comes back into play because it was really satisfying to like I was just maybe like one step ahead of the chapter where it'd be like it would say a sentence and then immediately I kind of pieced it together before it explained it to me, but it was just like I didn't know it a second before that. It was just like satisfying enough to be like, oh right, of course you could get trapped in the Lotus Casino, and like of course they hadn't even mentioned Vegas to begin with. I would have had no idea that Bianca would have any experience there. Like, so you can't really guess so much about why she can't remember her past or like why she's maybe been living longer than how we think, because there is obviously the foreshadowing stuff that happens in DC when she's talking about not remembering the subway line and things like that, but it's hard to piece together how that happened.
So in any run-of-the-mill book where an author doesn't really know what they're doing with time travel, a lot of the times Bianca would have been like, oh yeah, me and my brother stayed in Vegas for a little bit. But see, that's where you're like, oh, of course, the Lotus Casino.
You would
But
guess that.
Again,
Yeah, exactly.
detective novelist, he just gives enough information. If we stayed at some hotels for a little bit, like throwaway dialogue, pretty much you wouldn't catch it unless you reread it a
Right,
couple times.
right.
And then you're like, oh,
And it's
oh
not obvious,
no.
but it is established, which I think is like a good balance. Like, yeah, he mentions hotels. He doesn't mention specific hotels. He doesn't mention like a casino or anything like that.
Well, you would think
Yeah.
like if you're going cross country, you're gonna spend. If you're going cross country, you're gonna spend a couple of days in a hotel, unless for some reason you just have like those weird buses where people just like keep going the entire time.
It's interesting because I did also think about Vegas when the sort of premise is established that they have to go west again and that there is something that's going to happen in the desert. I was like, they've already gone to Vegas in the first book. Are they going to go back there? And I found it like really nice that that's like kind of wrapped up like, oh, we might have to end up going there again. And then the fact that both Percy and Bianca have their own like hang-ups about what happened there, or also I guess Grover too, because he was there. Like, I don't know. I found that really nicely done. It didn't feel like out of the blue, but it also wasn't like so obvious that I found it annoying. It was like very nicely done.
A lot of this chapter I would say was nicely done because we have the moments with Aphrodite and how that's an interesting fact.
I love that.
And then we get into the.
Do you know how much I love this?
Oh no, I love this. I love this a lot.
It was great.
So like throughout this chapter, the best way I would describe it is it's very complements each other because we have the stuff with Aphrodite, but then we have the bigger things with Bianca later on in this chapter, which we'll get to. We're not going to spoil it just quite yet, but we should like kick it.
But really, if you're listening to this, maybe read this chapter first.
Maybe read this chapter a little bit.
Just
so
a heads up.
Let's get into this a little bit, like right now. So Percy and the gang are on good old Forbidden Bacon. They're pigging out in the desert when.
Yeah, I like the description that Percy gives about how uncomfortable it was to ride the boar. He says, imagine riding a giant steel brush over a bed of gravel all day.
Have you ever gone horseback riding? Because the way he describes it is so accurate to like saddle sores and just being on an animal for most of the day. It sucks.
Oh, yeah. I don't like horseback riding, actually, for that reason. I find it kind of uncomfortable, and like the idea of like being at the whim of not a wild animal, but sort of like an animal that has its own will, and it could just sort of like buck me off and I could die. Like that's kind of horrifying. So I think extrapolated to like a giant boar that's like galloping into the sunset, like kind of horrifying.
This is why I prefer riding English.
Side saddle, you mean, or with an English saddle?
With an English, side saddle.
Yeah.
Just so you can like just jump off if that happens.
It's like, oh, all right, well, it's getting a little feisty. Time to peace out.
The sun's getting real low there, big guy. But yeah, so.
Yeah, God, there's so much happening. I even forgot about the boar. Like, there's a lot to unpack here.
But yeah, like, so Forbidden Bacon, I don't know. I know there's an actual name for this boar, but I think Forbidden Bacon's what I'm calling this beautiful hunk of meat.
Yeah, there was some sort of name for the boar. I don't remember. It was in the last chapter. It was like
it doesn't really matter. Boar. It really doesn't matter.
It had a title. I'm sorry, I'm not respecting your title, Mr. Boar. I don't remember
names have power. But the most important thing is that this boar is really hungry, so it starts like gnawing down on cactuses, and it's like, well, this is as far as it goes. It's the end of the line.
Like a very visceral scene, like the idea of like a giant boar just like devouring cacti, like quills and all, just like, this is delicious. It like kind of drives home how like wild and dangerous this creature is. It's kind of sweet to like have the conversation happen with Grover about how desperate he is to find Pan. He's like, oh, well, maybe it was the coffee. Maybe I could go back to there and like drink coffee again. Like, it's the best lead we have. Like, I thought that was really sweet and kind of sad. Like, that this is his obsession.
Grover's gonna get the coffee shakes. He's just gonna keep drinking coffee until like has the jitters.
I have a theory that might be really dumb, or I might be a genius.
I'd like to hear this theory. Go on, B.
The theory that maybe this just popped in my brain and like it's totally has no bearing and people are laughing at me, but the way that he starts to talk about how like, oh, it had to be Pan that caused all that stuff. Here, let me like find the actual passage that he says. Maybe it was the coffee, Grover said. I was drinking coffee and the wind came. Maybe if I drink more coffee. I was pretty sure coffee had nothing to do with what happened in Cloudcroft, but I didn't have the heart to tell Grover. I thought about the rubber rat and the tiny birds that had suddenly come to life when the wind blew. Grover, do you really think that was Pan? I mean, I know you want it to be. He sent us help, Grover insisted. I don't know how or why, but it was his presence. After this quest is done, I'm going back to New Mexico and drinking a lot of coffee. It's the best lead we've gotten in 2,000 years. I was so close. So I think specifically like the line where they say that like something happened when I don't know, it kind of focuses on Grover. And I don't know, it makes me think like maybe did Grover cause that? And does he have like specific nature magic that he doesn't realize how powerful he is? Or like, is he Pan somehow? Could that be possible? Like,
so B, what you're telling me is that Grover is nature Jesus. He was born out of the sheer willpower of nature. This is pandemonium you're speaking of, B. Cats and dogs living in harmony. What's next?
Yeah, no, I just, maybe it's not specifically that Grover is Pan, but that he has like stronger powers than he realized or something. It's something like that. The way that they describe it and the way he's like, oh, it had to be Pan. It reminds me a lot of like the scene in Harry Potter where Harry thinks that he saw his dad, but really he saw himself casting a Patronus. And it's like he is actually his own savior kind of thing. And it reminded me of that, like the way that it was described. So I don't know if that's trying to like foreshadow that there's something going on with Grover that we don't know about, but that's my theory. This might be totally ridiculous, or everyone's like, B's got it. It's literally one or the other, but I don't have no idea. And you can't tell me.
Oh, so what you're telling me, B, is all I'm going to say is maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. All we got to do is maybe Grover's Captain Planet. Let our powers combine.
Yeah, exactly. I literally, there's no way to know.
Well, we're getting close. We have water. We have sky or air, I guess, right, with Thalia.
That's true.
Bianca's Grover's probably heart.
Yeah.
And Zoe.
I don't remember what the people in Captain Planet were, though, because I didn't watch that show.
Oh, it's easy. Yeah, let's see. There's heart, fire, earth, wind, and water.
Yeah. Oh, so I guess we're missing Earth?
Zoe's more like she puts on her angry man-hating eyes and she just shoots like man-hating powers for some reason. Like,
yeah, that's like everyone all remembers Captain Planet: heart, fire, wind, earth, and misandry.
Death to the patriarchy
or something. I don't know. Zoe's hilarious. I find her bickering with Thalia very funny because that happens right after the whole thing with Pan, where it's just like, for you, Thalia corrected, not thee. But you use you for the beginning of a sentence, and for the end, Thalia said, not thou, not thee, just you.
See, I love that dynamic. When it comes to any characters that interact this way, I love it because it's just more realistic to have characters that bicker about stupid, pointless things other than...
Oh, yeah, totally. I think their dynamic is very funny.
Yeah, I love their dynamic because in an average teen adult thing, their bickering would be what man they want more.
Yeah, but it's totally removed from that because Thalia kind of is like ambivalent towards most people, and Zoe obviously like hates the mere concept of men. And then it's so funny because then Zoe goes, Zoe threw up her hands in exasperation. I hate this language. It changes too often. Like, I thought that was kind of sweet, like how she kind of does feel frustrated at being unable to like adjust to this modern world that she's not a part
She
of.
changes her lingo. It's like in the 90s. Whoa, that was ungnarly. This is not radical enough.
There's also some spooky stuff with Zoe too, because they start talking about like the constellations and everything.
Oh yeah, they're talking about like Ursa Minor. They're talking about all the stars and how she's like sad because of light pollution, because the evil electricity is out there.
Yeah, hold on. This is nothing, Zoe said. In the old days, there were more. Whole constellations have disappeared because of human light pollution. You talk like you're not human, I said. Zoe raised an eyebrow. I'm a hunter. I care what happens to the wild places of the world. Can the same be said for thee? And then that's when they get into the bickering.
Well, then that's when they get into their bickering. But I think the most important part for the takeaway of this is most stories about the stars deal with Greek mythology. This is where the oral tradition comes from, is looking at the stars and making things like the bear, Gemini, Pisces. I keep thinking of zodiac signs, but, like the Little Dipper, Orion's belt, like things like this, where
zodiacs also, yeah.
People would make stories to connect the world. So Zoe, obviously, we know that she's like ancient, is that obviously there's going to be things like this, especially like the North Star and how it's like, oh, we have to go west. So we look at the North Star and we just go west. Like things like that. Like you're using things like constellations and old stories to piece together things. That's why Zoe likes it. Like in her day, the internet wasn't even like a twinkle in the creation of the world's eye.
In a twinkle in Al Gore's eye. I'm going to make an internet.
But
yeah, there's so much backstory with so many people. There's backstory stuff that we hint at with Grover. There's backstory stuff that we hint at with Zoe and with Bianca. Like there's just like a lot happening in this chapter, and it doesn't feel like too much. It's just like very expertly done, like comes out in conversation in a way that feels very natural dialogue.
Yes. And the most important part about this is that
where's the part where they talk about Ursa Major? And then like doesn't Zoe say something where it's like, it was a good bear or something? And he's like, oh, you say that like it was real?
Of course that bear's real. Did you ever watch, I'm not sure, actually, I know you probably haven't watched this. I've showed you the scene before. It's the one where Lou Ferrigno throws the bear into space. Wait, I'll have to redo this.
Yes, you have shown me
I know that I've showed you the scene before, but the bear was real because Lou Ferrigno in the Hercules movie from the 80s throws the bear into space.
Oh my God. He just chucks it. It's, yeah, I remember.
I'm gonna have to
I can't not remember that scene. I think it's just kind of in there. It went in the spot of my brain where like the quadratic equation and all that important stuff, goes, and instead
the best way to describe it is we're going to be putting the video down the show notes. Is that Lou Ferrigno is throws a man in a bear costume into space, and you just see the bear like flop around and then explode in space.
He does. I don't know why it explodes. That's maybe the best part. And that's how the constellation came to be.
So we all have to thank Lou Ferrigno.
He threw it into space and then it stuck.
So we have to thank Lou Ferrigno for that. Thank you so much, Mr. Incredible Hulk. But when it comes to the structure of this chapter, I was looking at this again once again, they're in the middle of nowhere. We have a slow burn chapter where there's not really much action because it's flat, except for they're in a town in the middle of Arizona pretty much. And there's just a junkyard and a couple places and a taco stand. And not a lot happens. You need to have the characters need to talk to each other rather than the characters responding to the environment, which works in this chapter, especially what happens next.
So many characters emerge all of a sudden.
For some reason. Oh, no. This is before Zoe and Bianca have TARDIS material.
Oh, right. We find
and
out
how
about
they
the
have
whole past stuff.
Backpacks
right.
of
yes,
ever enlarging,
first.
changing. Yes, I gotta talk about this. Zoe and Bianca produced 5 sleeping bags and foam mattresses out of their backpacks. I don't know how they did it because the packs were tiny, but must have been enchanted to hold so much more stuff. I noticed their bows and quivers were also magic. I never really thought about it, but when the hunters needed them, they just happened to be slung over their backs. And when they didn't need them, they were gone. Do I have to bring up about Harry Potter again and how this is like Harry Potter?
Oh yeah, I was thinking Harry Potter too. I was like when they're like roving across like the English countryside with their bag, like looking for Horcruxes. Yes, it's very much reminiscent of that.
But yeah, So they're about to have like a good old campfire song. Let's gather around the campfire and sing our campfire song.
Also, Mary Poppins.
Well, Mary Poppins
if
is
we're being honest. Mary Poppins and also what is it? Halloween Town. Those also have endless bags. It's a common trope, is what I'm saying. And Bedknobs and Broomsticks, I think, maybe also. There's just a lot of examples.
To be fair, Mary Poppins is the Time Lord after all. Like, she doesn't age, and she flies around, and she has pretty much a TARDIS carpet bag.
Oh, yeah, she definitely is. Bigger on the inside.
And she's also played by Emily Blunt now, because she's regenerated, and no one's noticed a difference.
Yep, exactly. Anyway, so yeah.
But they're in the middle of nowhere about to have, like, their campfire song. So let's gather around the campfire and sing our campfire song, our CAMPFERESONG song. and they sit down and let's not try to sing along, bum, bum, bum. So pretty much they sit down and they start having a conversation about Bianca. And Bianca's like, how did I kill that thing? And they're like, I don't know. Was it the knife? No.
Yeah, so there's that thing where, like, you're like, okay, why does she have this power of, like, setting things on fire? Is she... who is her godly parent? I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't know enough about mythology. I keep thinking Hades, but I'm mostly thinking of the Hades from Hercules. So I don't think it's actually him. I'm just imagining someone with fire for hair.
But wait, why do you think it's Hades?
Because of literally the fire thing. Because, right, it bursts into flames when she stabs it.
Well, there's other gods that have...
There's other gods associated with fire. I know. That's why I don't think it's Hades. My brain is associating with that. So I'm like, maybe it's Hades. And it's like the one out of the big three that we thought didn't have a kid. But I don't think that's the case. That's my only guess. Because, like, I don't know. What other god would it be? I can't think of anybody. I don't know.
It's one of those things, those wild, wacky things about time. But once again, it's like one of the...
So there's that weird thing.
Well, yeah, because it's like you don't really explain it because, as we see at the end of this chapter, she can't explain it.
They can't explain anything. So, like, they move past that. They're like, oh, yeah, so that was kind of weird when you stabbed the skeleton thing and it set on fire. And then they move on to the other weird stuff about how she's immortal, or, like, not immortal, but, like, she's lived for, like, decades longer than she looks like she's lived.
Yeah, dermatologists really hate her.
With this one weird trick.
It's all about eating that kale and rubbing this coconut butter all over your face. And during the middle of the night during a solar eclipse, that's how you keep so youthful. Mm-hmm. Or you see at the Lotus Casino, what she talks about, because it's like, well, we need to head west toward Las Vegas. And Percy and Bianca are like, nah, we're good. We're not going there anymore.
Yeah, I like how they're both like, nope, we have our own special trauma from that place.
I just imagine, like, they get to Vegas, and it's like, where should we stay? They see, like, the Lotus Casino, and the bellhop is, like, waving at them, and they're just like, let's keep moving.
Yeah, it's, like, spooky, like, The Shining stuff going on. Like, they just see, like, a spooky portrait with, like, Bianca's face painted into it. Like, yeah, not great.
It's just like, are we going to stay here? And the bellhop's like, but Percy, you've been here the entire time.
Yeah.
Like
the Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
Oh my God, what are the Eagles doing playing here?
Yep.
I like that aspect of, the world is rounded in this way where it's a lot of world building, where things obviously are connected. Some books will have throwaway things, such as the Lotus Casino, where they wouldn't really be in the story. They serve one purpose and one purpose only. Here, it's more of a device, which I like to do stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it comes back. It's very satisfying that it's like, it's a part of the landscape of the world. Like, oh, of course, I guess other people would have been trapped there. And it's not just, this one weird circumstance. And I think it, like, happened far enough away in the Percy Jackson series where it's like, it's in your memory, but it's not at the forefront of, like, oh, of course, that's why she seems to be older than she is or whatever. And then it's like, oh, of course.
Well, this is the first time in the series where you've had a direct reference or callback from an original piece of material from
like
another book.
Setting or something where they're, like, returning to it or thinking about how it influenced someone else. Yeah. It's nice, though. It makes the world feel like
Actually, come to think of it, this whole chapter is a gigantic callback from the first book, because we have Ares.
Oh, it totally is. With the Pan stuff, too.
And we have the Lotus Casino. Except my favorite part about this
tons
is...
of callback stuff happens in this chapter.
But my favorite part about this, B, is that, it's like, oh my God, she's old. Bianca, who's the president? And it's like, oh, that's easy. FDR. Oh,
yeah. She's like, FDR.
And you're like, oh my God.
Actually, she doesn't say the FDR is president. I like the way that Rick Riordan wrote this so that way it wouldn't be dated, which is Bianca, Zoe said, can you tell me the name of the president of the United States right now? Don't be silly, Bianca said. She told us the correct name of the president.
He probably...
Because if she said Donald Trump...
Well, no, see, that's
that
like
would
the
be
idea
a whole
of
thing.
if you make Back to the Future now, it's the same type of joke. It's like, who's the president in 1985, future boy? That's easy. Ronald Reagan. And then you do it now if you did like a
yeah,
remake.
right.
Like, then who's the president in 2019, future boy? That's easy. Donald Trump, the businessman?
Yeah,
It's just-
exactly. So it's very funny that they just say, she told us the correct name of the president. What name? I mean, I guess when this was written...
Like
Was it-
2008, 2009-ish.
Oh, so it's Obama. Obama was president.
Yes, that would be
Already.
correct. But it's one of those things where you can easily date it, or you could have it this way, where like most the TV shows, like they don't just use the president; they have their own
Yeah.
version of the president.
Right. They have like a fictional character, but in this case, it's like historical. Like they're kind of sticking to that kind of stuff. I guess because we're already doing like this urban fantasy, weird historical fiction thing that's going on. So
Well,
they
it'd
wouldn't,
also
like,
be really
invent presidents. I don't think.
well. It's also like one of those weird, wacky things where you can have the president in the book as like a public figure, but you can't really do much with it. It's kind of like in the Transformers movies, even though they're terrible. Like the first movie does have George Bush in it, but you don't see his face because they couldn't get his likeness for some weird reason. Do you remember
That's
this?
so funny.
Where he wants a ding dong, but the way they frame the shot in that movie is you only see his face through his foot. Like you don't see
That's
his
really
face.
funny.
There's like stupid things like that. But it's one of those things where I'd prefer to have it like she's correctly said the president's name, because it would be really distracting to have.
If if it was a specific name, like, and then she said Obama, and it's like, well, it's been a while.
Yeah. It's been quite a while. Except FDR is also an appropriate response.
Yeah. So I love how Percy says, like FDR drive, I asked, because seriously, that's all I knew about FDR. Wow. Education is failing Percy.
That reminds me of the joke in Back to the Future where they're talking about where Marty's like trying to ask directions to get to Doc Brown's house. And it's like, oh, yeah, you go past like Fern or whatever. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's now John F. Kennedy Drive. And the guy just turns to, who the heck's John F. Kennedy?
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, Percy should know, though. He's lived in the modern day for a while. He's just not very good at school.
No.
I feel like dyslexia does not excuse the fact that he didn't know anything about FDR. That does not prohibit you from knowing anything.
Yeah, and again, it's the idea of the time warp and how Bianca, for some weird reason, this is why I was bringing up the plot hole originally, is that it was a couple of times ago. It's like we're talking about PG-13, like, but that reminds me of I was bringing up a couple chapters ago about the plot hole. This is just how my brain works about movies, is that when they're in the camp with Bianca and Nico, and Grover's like, I'm going to show you the new training video, Nico. And it's like, what's it rated? PG-13. He's like, cool. Bianca, Nico would have no concept what PG-13 was because it didn't take place until the 70s.
Oh, right. Didn't think about that. Oh, no, but he would have a concept of it because they went to whatever school for a while, and they probably learned about modern things.
Possibly, but wouldn't that be really weird? Because prior to like I don't even know when it is, like 1935 they left, probably.
I guess.
There wasn't really a rating system either. Like the rating system didn't really happen until about
I'm
the
sure that
late
they learned
40s.
some things, though, while they were at whatever. What was that academy again?
Westover.
When they were at Westover, like, I mean, they've been like on their own for a while, like in between the time that they're in the Lotus hotel and casino and when they were picked up by the hunters / the campers, there was stuff going on in their lives where they must have learned modern things.
Yeah, but it seems like one of those things that would just be like really arbitrary to like think about. But then again, Nico does play Myth of
That's what
Magic.
I'm
It's
saying.
much better than, playing the old stickball.
Yeah.
And playing jacks.
That's what I'm saying. So he likes modern things too. So he must have learned that somewhere.
I just imagine like Nico so disassociated. Like, oh my God, they have the new Andrews Sisters vinyl. I'm so excited to listen to it.
Yeah, he's like just doing like the Charleston or whatever. Yeah, I'm trying to piece together exactly at what point they became more in touch with modern culture, because Zoe's so out of touch. I mean, she's way older. She's like ancient, but they don't seem to like do that classic tropey fumbling around with modern things that a lot of like characters like that do. Like they get confused about certain modern things, like the thing that happened with DC with the subway, but they don't go, they don't say things like what's a phone or what, you know what I mean? Like what's a cell phone or like they don't get confused by a bunch of different things. So there had to be some sort of establishing stuff that happened to them where they learned about modern things. I don't exactly know.
There's not going to be the scene where they're trying to like use the phone. It's like, oh no, doesn't have like the disc thing that you have to like go, like the rotary phone. It's like, oh my God, it's got buttons. We don't know how to use one of these. What, you're telling me a phone call is more than 25 cents? What is this? Highway robbery?
Yeah, I'm just like trying to figure out the timeline. I don't know if this is a plot hole or if like it's just kind of presumed that at Westover that they learned stuff.
I would imagine that for me, I would like to think about it that it is more of like you assume it, but also I think it's a little bit of an overlook because they haven't really been out long enough for them to really adjust, because that's just once again, that's how my brain works. Like I see things like that and it's like, oh wait, that doesn't quite make much sense to me because I have like a prior knowledge to that.
It's kind of confusing because we know Rick Riordan can write a character that's sort of like out of place, out of time. Even Talia, who was a tree for only a couple years or whatever, she still is adjusting to like the weirdness of being in a different time period than what she was used to. So I find it a little bit unbelievable that they would like not realize sooner about how long they're in the Lotus Hotel, because wouldn't they be like, oh, all of this is different? Do you know what I'm saying? It would be like that scene in The Shawshank Redemption when he's just like doesn't adjust to like modern society because there's like cars and stuff. Like I feel like they would be way more freaked out than they seem to be acting.
It's one of those things where I think Rick Riordan has this cool idea and he writes it and then he overlooks minor things. Yeah, he
didn't think about the implications.
He also didn't realize that I'd be reading this book.
Right. No, I mean, I noticed that too. I found that kind of confusing because like FDR, like that's a while ago.
It's one of those things where you always have like the fish out of water story where you have it where they're adjusted kind of like Captain America from First Avenger to about Civil War. He's completely kind of adjusted to like, oh yeah, I've been frozen for so long. Well, this is how the world works now.
So are they implying that she kind of knew that they were there for a long time and that she just didn't want to talk about it? Or that their like memories are kind of fuzzy because of like the weird stuff that happened at the Lotus Hotel?
She didn't want to really talk about it because I think it's one of those things. It's like, how do you explain, oh my God,
right,
we're in 1935, now we're in 2009.
Well, they could have explained it once they found out that they were demigods, I feel like.
Yeah, but it's like
because
they could assume that they're demigods, but it's one of those things where they don't know about it in prior like recollection. They just thought it was just something weird and bizarre. But also, when you're a kid of that age, you don't really pay attention to the year all that much. Like, I didn't even know it was the year 2000 until...
Yes, they know the president, though. I don't know. This is like a plot hole. I'm kind of confused about what's going on with both Nico and Bianca. Like, I don't know.
It's one of those things that I think Rick Riordan has good intentions, but then he didn't realize that we'd be reviewing these books.
Yeah. Maybe they kind of knew because let me just like read her reaction and like see how this comes across. It seems like she's confused though. Yeah, it's like FDR Drive, I asked, because seriously, that's all I knew about FDR. Bianca, Zoe said, FDR was not the last president. That was about 70 years ago. That's impossible, Bianca said. I'm not that old. She stared at her hands as if to make sure they weren't wrinkled. Talia's eyes turned sad. I guess she knew what it was like to get pulled out of time for a while. It's okay, Bianca. The important thing is you and Nico are safe. You made it out. But how? I said. We were only in there for an hour. And we barely escaped. How could you have escaped after being there for so long? I told you. Bianca looked about ready to cry. A man came and said it was time to leave but who? Why did he do it? Before she could answer, we were hit with a blazing light from down the road. So she seems confused about it. She doesn't, maybe it's just like her memory is weird and messed up from being in the Lotus Hotel for so long. That could be an explanation. I wish that they maybe had one or two sentences that clarified that a little bit. That was just like, oh yeah, being a part of the Lotus Hotel for so long and being stuck out of time and being under that trance confuse them, and that's what made, I mean, because there are parts where they don't remember their past so much, like we've seen that before, where it's like very muddled. So that's maybe the justification for why they're like not confused, because they're just like basically amnesiacs who just are like, oh yeah, I guess this is the world now, or something.
Well, it's also those things where it's like you blink your eyes and suddenly 70 years have gone by. Like, you're not going to adjust instantly, or you're going to be in denial almost,
I
because
don't think so.
prior to them like finding out that they're demigods, remember, the human mind is going to assume the best logical thing is that everything else is wrong other than you. It's kind of like Schrodinger's cat almost, and how they're almost like in weird limbo.
I think it's Schrodinger's cat. I think Schroeder is the piano player in the Peanuts.
Oh, whatever.
Close though.
They both look the same.
Do 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 do.
But it's one of those things. It's like, is it are they alive? Are they dead? They're just frozen in time. But surprise, surprise, another interruption as good old fashioned Ares.
Another interruption. Thanks, Rick.
As
Here
good
we go
old fashioned
again.
Ares joins the scene in their big old like 90s villain limousine.
90s villain limousine. Yeah, he just busts on out of there with his Doug Dimmadome limo.
For some reason, he's also wearing like the 900-gallon hat.
Yeah, it just keeps going on and on forever.
Yeah, and Percy's so happy to see Ares, because Ares is so happy to behead him almost.
Yeah, he's very stoked about it. Oh man, yeah. It's weird to see him again, I think, because I just sort of forgot that there was like this whole other antagonist that didn't like him.
But
that didn't
Ares
like
is
Percy.
here, but he's forbidden to kill Percy. I like he has, the power to make people drop their weapons and stuff.
Right. He's not actually forbidden to kill Percy, I don't think. I think he just doesn't want to because it's not in his best interest at that moment.
Aphrodite forbid it, so he has to follow her because she loves.
Right, he's following her. And then also he wants the war to happen.
Well, he wants it to happen because the greatest war of all time might happen.
Yes.
Which was the whole purpose of the lightning
So
thief.
there's a couple reasons.
Yeah, there's a couple reasons.
Yeah, so that's his justification.
But pretty much, Grover is like, hey, what are we doing here? What do we chop liver? And all of a sudden, like, Ares like snaps his fingers and the taco stand comes to life. I love that.
And he's like, oh, all right, we're going to go get tacos. See ya. I don't know. Like, I'd be scared, but also like happy. I'd be like, hey, tacos are good.
No, here's the thing that I always think about, like, world building. Like, when they go inside, is it just going to be a bunch of people, like, just really confused, like, working? Or is it going to be, like, a bunch of spooky skeleton zombies, like, working in the back?
Maybe skeletons. I think it might be skeletons or something like that. Or ghosts or, I don't know, spirits.
Oh, no. Woo.
Something magical. Maybe magical creatures. They don't really go into it. So we could pick apart forever the logistics of what happened at the taco place, but we have to move on.
Well, I'd just go inside and I'd ask for a chalupa. Even though that's not Mexican at all.
That's true. Most Mexican-American foods are just like, we put a bunch of cheese on some tortillas and said it was Mexican.
Oh no, Dios mio. So what ends up happening is Percy gets ushered inside of this limousine, which, if you don't know the person in the car, don't go inside.
Yeah, that's stranger danger, my friend.
But Percy Jackson goes inside, and you know what I was thinking about when we first meet Aphrodite? Do you know who I thought of? Who do you think I think of when Percy goes inside and sees her?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, she's supposed to be like the most beautiful woman in the world, and she's like... But she looks like anybody that you would find beautiful. So I don't know who you'd think of.
For me, I was thinking about, you have to think of it like in contrast of Ares. Who do you think what she would look like compared to Ares?
Oh, so were you thinking of like a biker chick? You mean?
Kinda.
Or, I'm not sure.
Kinda. You getting what I'm getting at right now? I was thinking of like.
Wait, Elvira? Were you picturing
Well,
Elvira?
I like Elvira, but no, I was thinking of Olivia Newton-John in Grease.
Oh, okay, I could see that. Yeah, okay, so I see what.
Kind of like that aesthetic.
Oh, like 50s, you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't picture that at all. Because I don't think that
What did
she
you
has that
picture?
aesthetic, right? She just like happens to be beautiful. Like almost timeless, right? That's the description of her.
Well, her description is pretty much like she's timeless, but every time someone looks at her, they see their personification of what
right.
the most beautiful
okay,
thing
can I
is.
read this? Because this is like adorable.
Yeah, B.
Thinking back on it, I can't tell you who she looked like, or even what color her hair or her eyes were. Pick the most beautiful actress you can think of. The goddess was 10 times more beautiful than that. Pick your favorite hair color, eye color, whatever. The goddess had that. When she smiled at me, just for a moment, she looked a little like Annabeth, then like this television actress I used to have a crush on in 5th grade. Well, then, you get the idea. It's like adorable. So very clearly into Annabeth. We're going to get more into the Annabeth stuff now that he's having this conversation with Aphrodite, and it's just like her, the most excited shipper in the world.
Oh, no.
It's so cute, honestly. I thought it was very sweet.
Oh, no. I'm just hearing all the fangirls just squeeing right now.
Oh, yeah, literally. Because he's like envisioning
Well, it's
her
sweet
as the most
because
beautiful person.
Percy doesn't realize it, but his subconscious does. I like that idea about Aphrodite that, you know, she isn't just one set of beauty. She's the eye. She's like the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
Now thinking
like
about
that
it,
too.
you kind of.
I think that that's like very refreshing in a way, because then it's kind of like very prescriptive to be like, oh, this one specific eye color, hair color, look of a person is the most beautiful in the world. So to be like, oh, well, what's the most beautiful depends on like the eye of the beholder kind of thing. Like I find that to be a more open-minded, interesting way to like picture Aphrodite than being like, she's a very specific, like westernized idea of beauty with like this hair and this face and whatever. So I thought that was really sweet. Also, because we get to peer into Percy's feelings about Annabeth, which I thought was adorable.
But you've kind of ruined it for me because now I kind of just want Elvira to be Aphrodite. Yeah.
You want Elvira? Because to you, she's the most beautiful woman in
Oh,
the
yeah,
world.
totally. No, I just think she has the best personality to play Aphrodite.
No, yeah, that would be hilarious, though. I would totally believe that. Who would you cast, though? I'm trying to think.
Well,
That'd
what
be
you
so
would do
hard
be is
to cast an actress.
you cast a bunch of people, so every time someone sees her, she's a different person.
Oh, yeah, that would be great, actually. That would be really awesome if it was just like a bunch of like actors of like different like races and like heights and hair color and everything, and they're just like constantly
something
changing.
like that. Like I'm thinking about
awesome.
there's an episode of Star Trek, the original series, with a creature like that, where every time a person sees it, it's the most beautiful woman, I guess the ideal woman, but really it's a creature that wants to like, steal all your salt.
Oh, wait, I think I know about this episode for some reason. I think it's like
It's a meme.
a well-known episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's something like that. I love the conversation that they have because even though Percy
It's so
doesn't
cute.
realize it, he actually kind of has a
Hilarious.
crush on Annabeth, which is understandable
bubbly
because
idiot. I
they've
love
been
it.
friends for so long. And also, you know, Percy is a 14-year-old boy. And of course, I'm not stupid. Not everyone's like just like asexual. You know, he's going to have feelings for people that like he's been with for a long time. And also, he's like a straight dude. So obviously, he's going to kind of fall in love with Annabeth.
Yeah, it's kind of set up from the beginning, like, oh yeah, this girl that he spends a lot of time with. He also just like immediately, it's established in like the first book that he's like taken aback by how pretty she is.
Yes, even though they're still
So-
cousins.
It's definitely a thing. Oh yeah, forgot about that gross thing, huh? That sure is something that you forget about, and then it
This drawn to
ruins the
be,
whole thing.
it's like the idea of we're in a hot air balloon, then all of a sudden I just pull out like a pen that says cousins and pop it.
And it just we're flying.
No,
crashing
we're
towards the
falling
ground.
with style.
Exactly, or without style at all, because it's gross. You said that there was a justification for it, right? 'Cause,
God's
like,
hope there
yikes.
is.
Yikes. Yeah,
There-
I hope that there's
There
some sort
is,
of
but
canonical
it
thing
comes
that-
later on in the books. Because even
Why'd you wait so long, Rick? Why do you make me suffer like this? I think this is cute, but come on, they're technically related.
no, just a bunch of sister wives. I don't need any of that in my life.
Oh, it is. It's like sister. What? Okay, we're moving on. It's not great. There was a news story recently about cousins marrying, and it's just like, yeesh, you guys. What year is it?
Well, it's Westeros. You know, we're dealing with the Lannisters.
Yeah, they're doing it for a political alliance. Like, I don't even know.
But I love the conversation that they have with Aphrodite because she's been the one secretly pulling the strings because, you know, love is a very powerful
Yeah, she
thing.
did a lot of string pulling.
Well, yeah, because love is a very powerful thing, and Percy wanted to go on this quest not knowing that he's actually crushing mad hard on Annabeth.
Yeah, this is very cute. Here, let me read their conversation a little bit. Do you know why you're here? She asked. I wanted to respond. Why couldn't I form a complete sentence? She was only a lady, a seriously beautiful lady with eyes like pools of spring water. Whoa. I pinched my own arm hard. I don't know, I managed. Oh dear, Aphrodite said, still in denial. Outside the car, I could hear Ares chuckling. I had a feeling he could hear every word we said. The idea of him being out there made me angry, and that helped clear my mind. I don't know what you're talking about, I said. Well then, why are you out on this quest? Artemis has been captured. Aphrodite rolled her eyes. Oh, Artemis, please, talk about a hopeless case. I mean, if they were going to kidnap a goddess, she should be breathtakingly beautiful, don't you think? I pity the poor dears who have to imprison Artemis. Boring. But she was chasing a monster, I protested. A really, really bad monster. We have to find it. Aphrodite made me hold the mirror a little higher. She seemed to have found a microscopic problem at the corner of her eye and dabbed at her mascara. Always some monster, but my dear Percy, that is why the others are on this quest. I'm more interested in you. My heart pounded. I didn't want to answer, but her eyes drew an answer right out of my mouth. Annabeth is in trouble. Aphrodite beamed. Exactly. I have to help her, I said. I've been having these dreams. Ah, you even dream about her. That's so cute. No, I mean, that's not what I meant. She made a tisk-tisk sound. Percy, I'm on your side. I'm the reason you're here, after all. I stared at her. What? The poison t-shirt the Stoll brothers gave Phoebe. She said, did you think that was an accident? Sending Flapjack to find you? Helping... Oops, sorry, I hit my mic. Sending Flapjack to find you? Helping you sneak out of the camp? You did that? Of course, because really, how boring these hunters are. A quest for some monster, blah, blah, blah. Saving Artemis, let her stay lost, I say. But a quest for true love. Wait a second, I never said... Oh, my dear, you don't need to say it. You do know Annabeth was close to joining the hunters, don't you? I blushed. I wasn't sure. She was about to throw her life away, and you, my dear, you have to save her from that. It's so romantic. Oh, put the mirror down, Aphrodite ordered. I look fine. I hadn't realized I was still holding it, but as soon as I put it down, I noticed my arms were sore. Now listen, Percy, Aphrodite said. The hunters are your enemies. Forget them and Artemis and the monster. That's not important. You just concentrate on finding and saving Annabeth. So funny. This scene is hilarious. I love it so much.
So the way I'm picturing the scene, B, is it's a hilarious scene, except the way I'm looking at this, it's the equivalent of, like, Artemis is the type of girl that, like, wears, like, hiking boots and flannel, whereas Artemis is, like, totally like a girl to girl.
Oh,
it's
absolutely, yeah. Well, also Artemis is... The hunters of Artemis, they, like, cast off, like, love with men, so, like, the opposite of Aphrodite in every way. She's like, ugh, so boring. You don't want to have beautiful men fawn over you. Like, whatever. Like, they're just so diametrically opposed, and it's hilarious for her to be like, I mean, you'd think they would at least kidnap a beautiful goddess like me, but instead, let's focus on you and your tragic love story. That's, like, another hilarious thing that she goes on.
I love Aphrodite.
Later on.
I love Aphrodite. The really most discouraging thing about Aphrodite is that all of her children, it must be like really intimidating being a child of Aphrodite and being like, oh yeah, this is my mom.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of pressure there to be like the most beautiful, surrounded by
you can't
people.
Say that. You can't say you're the most beautiful because Aphrodite's the most beautiful.
Because she's the most beautiful. You have to be second most beautiful.
Yeah, you have to be like, I just feel like if you're going to do like an Aphrodite story, either there have to be mean girls or you have the one person that's like Violet from The Incredibles who doesn't understand that she's beautiful. Like she tries to cover it up.
Right. Yeah. It's so funny because then, God, Aphrodite's such a hilarious character because she's so like obsessed with love in like a way that's like sort of endearing, sort of like misguided. And the conversation with Percy is he's like so bumbling.
Well, she knows like she's
yeah.
Aphrodite knows that Percy's putty in her hands. Like, she could do whatever she wants because she's like prime like real estate for like dudes. She's just like, I get you to do anything. Oh, that's
because he's like hypnotized by her anyway. So he's like, yeah, whatever, I'll listen to you. But at the same time, he's like totally embarrassed about the whole Annabeth thing. I'm gonna like read more of their conversation because I think it's hilarious, and it goes on about kind of what is predicted with him and Annabeth. Aphrodite says, Percy says, Do you know where she is? Aphrodite waved her hand irritably. No, I leave the details to you. It's been ages since we've had a good tragic love story. Whoa, first of all, I never said anything about love. And second, what's up with tragic? Love conquers all, Aphrodite promised. Look at Helen and Paris. Did they let anything come between them? Didn't they start the Trojan War and get thousands of people killed? Pfft, that's not the point. Follow your heart. But I don't know where it's going, my heart, I mean. She smiled sympathetically. She really was beautiful, and not just because she had a pretty face or anything. She believed in love so much, it was impossible not to feel giddy when she talked about it. Not knowing is half the fun, Aphrodite said. Exquisitely painful, isn't it? Not sure who you love and who loves you. Oh, you kids. It's so cute. I'm going to cry.
Well,
it's such a funny story. Like, there's something about like the characterization of Aphrodite that's so spot on. Like, I thought this was really funny.
I think she understands the difference between like an adult relationship and a kid relationship, because there actually is a very big difference, because with a kid relationship, you don't understand like you're having these feelings for the very first time, and people are like, no, you don't. Like, yes, you do. We've all been teenagers. Like, we understand, like, love is much different. Like, holding hands and hugging, that means we're dating, right? Rather than like an adult relationship is like, oh, you need each other. You need, you kind of become like,
there's more responsibility.
Yeah, you become more like codependent.
It's very funny the way
Percy can't really perceive that, because again, he's a 14-year-old. And his idea of like girls is they're still kind of grody, but like there's something more to it.
That he's kind of grossed out by his own crush, sort of like, no, I don't have a crush. What are you talking about? And like, there's definitely that dynamic with him. And I mean, him and Annabeth already kissed though. Like, there was that scene at the chariot race. That was a while ago, but I guess so.
But it's also
it's been pretty obvious. They've done flirtatious stuff before. It's like we know, but I don't think he like really wants to admit it, because again, it's like 14. It's like a weird age where you're like, you don't want to talk about your crush. And you're like, no, it's fine. It doesn't mean anything.
But B, remember Annabeth's vision that Percy saw? Who was in the park?
It was Luke, right?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, it was Luke.
Yeah. So that's pretty rough. Oh, Percy.
Oh, no. Remember, what you need is what Aphrodite said. Everyone needs a good love story.
A tragic love story. Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, oh God, why does everybody love Luke so much?
He's a bad boy.
Annabeth, it's Talia. I know it's the bad boy thing, totally, but like gross. Ugh. His description of him makes him seem like a jerk.
Well, that's what girls like apparently in this universe, is jerks.
He's a villain, but he's also just a personality-wise. I feel like he would not be fun to be around, but that's just my opinion.
But yeah, so pretty much, Aphrodite's been pulling the strings the entire time, and that she's going to help a little more, pretty much. Like, she gives him the advice, you have to go through the junkyard. It's owned by my ugly husband, Hephaestus.
Hephaestus, yeah.
And you have to go through. Don't touch anything. Once you get through, you'll be able to get home
Don't
clear.
Touch anything. Yeah, this seems like a very typical kind of like, not Tomb Raider specifically, but any kind of like that.
It's the Cave of
adventure story of like, oh, you're surrounded by treasures and you can't take the treasure.
It's the Cave of Wonders. You can't touch it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
there's a lot of scenes like this.
It's like an Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade with having the Holy Grail. Like, obviously Donovan's going to pick the most ornate one.
Yes,
where Indy's going to pick the plain one that Jesus drank out of, pretty much. So pretty much what ends up happening is that Ares and Aphrodite, like, they get out of there. They drive away in their gigantic 50s style limo now, because I'm still thinking of this as Greece.
And then they fly into the sun, like the end of Greece.
Yes, exactly like the end of Greece. And for some reason, Ares turns into John Travolta, so that's even weirder.
Ugh, gross.
But pretty much what ends up happening is they start going through the junkyard, and again, everyone knows, don't touch a thing. Except, Grover touches something.
Don't touch it. And then immediately they start touching stuff. This is so aggravating to me. I don't know why I feel like I would just be able to resist it. It's kind of like that scene in Pan's Labyrinth when Ophelia takes the
grape,
takes the grape or whatever. And it's like, okay, you see the pale man sitting there, right? He's sitting right there with his spooky hands and his scary eyeless face. And there's like a whole creepy like tapestry or whatever, like a wall painting of murders happening of babies. And you're like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to eat a single grape. That's not going to feed your family, girl. Like, it's not worth it. She takes it anyway, immediately gets chased by the pale man, one of the creepiest movie monsters in the world, in my opinion.
It's
He scares the crap out of me. Like, this is sort of a similar thing. Like, come on,
it's
you
pretty
guys,
much like
just
the
don't take
forbidden
anything.
fruit. It's like Eve eating the apple almost, and having you're so tempted.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It's like the oldest
It's the
trope known to
oldest
man.
book. It's the oldest writing cliche in the history of the world. We should know. It's written in the effing Bible. But pretty much what ends up happening
Yeah,
kind of
literally.
is, I think, this is what I'm getting at, is that everything that you've noticed is that things that people really, really want. It's like when they're going through the maze of the junkyard. Like, let's put it this way, B. For some reason, like, you're like Tom Hanks and like is really obsessed with typewriters. I've read his book about typewriters. That man's obsessed. And for some reason, Tom Hanks is like going through, I'm Tom Hanks, and he sees like the most rare typewriter in the world. Obviously, you're going to be tempted.
I'm Tom Hanks. He says that every 5 minutes. It's in his contract as a Tom Hanks to say, I'm Tom Hanks.
Hi, I'm Tom Hanks. And he sees a Tom Hanks typewriter for some odd reason. And he's just like, well, I'm not supposed to touch this, but I really want it. It's like one of those things, like for us, like we'd be walking through B, and for some reason you'd see the sugar bowl from Series of Unfortunate Events prior to knowing what's
and you
inside
get to
of
see
it.
what's inside it.
Yeah, you'd want to know what's inside of it. Like for me, I don't even know what it would be. Probably some sword or something cool.
So I don't know, probably some sort. I don't
Well,
know. That's so funny to me.
I know what exactly it would
feel
be.
like-
It would be The Doors of Stone by Patrick Rothfuss. It'd just be sitting there, and it'd be like, I have to read this.
Oh man,
But I
what
can't.
would mine be? It would probably be like what, like money to pay back my student loans. Something probably sad. Not that great. I can't think of a lot of physical things that I want, honestly.
A brand new car.
Oh yeah, my car is pretty garbage. Maybe a
Something-
car with like better brakes and like windshield wipers that don't scream at me every time I use them. That would be good. That would probably be helpful.
It's like one of those things. So they end up getting through, except they are just about through when all of a sudden this book turns into a gigantic mecha anime where a gigantic Greek
Attack on Titan.
where a gigantic Greek statue comes to life, and they're just like do 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 do.
Very creepy. There's like this sculpture garden, I think, near DC that has like a giant hand sticking out of the ground, and that's what this description reminded me of this like giant creature. I forget, what is the giant called again?
Oh, the creature's name is Talos. It's like a gigantic Greek automaton. I was thinking about in Game of Thrones, they have like this
Talos?
gigantic statue in Bravos. If you look at the opening credit scene, it's like a figure holding a sword and a broken sword and a crown. That's what I was thinking of, was the statue from Bravos in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, Greek automaton.
But this thing's creepy because it's like, again, creepy robots that are 50 feet tall, and also Bianca knows she took something and she doesn't want to put it back until it's too late.
Yeah, there's this sculpture called The Awakening. That's in Washington, D.C.
So you're telling me this is a gigantic sculpture of Robin Williams?
And it's like a face and hands emerging out of the ground. It's horrifying. Like, you should look it up, actually, because this is what I imagined when they were describing this sort of like monster emerging from this pile of garbage. It's like really kind of horrifying.
All of a sudden you just hear like Godzilla sounds.
Yeah, Godzilla's like, "Rah!" Yeah, I can't really do it. Yeah. How did they make
but
the Godzilla pretty much
what
sound
ends
again?
up
I feel like this is something that you must know.
Oh, I know, it's easy. It's they took a leather glove and they put it on a stringed instrument,
Right,
usually like
yes,
a
that's what they
cello
did.
or a violin.
That's why a human can't make that noise. Okay, so I'm sending you a picture of this because this is what I was picturing the whole time when Talos emerges. It's kind of a creepy statue.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That does look like it. But we got to keep moving on, B. So pretty much what starts happening is
sorry.
that they have this big old fight with Talos, but, they can't really do much because it's a 50-foot tall,
horrifying
gigantic statue,
Titan
and,
monster.
arrows aren't going to work for it. Celestial bronze isn't really cutting it. And Bianca's freaking out because she took something, and it's
Literally.
stupid.
Bianca, it's like, come on, girl. Like, oh, so now you all of a sudden care about your brother? Like, you abandon him for like this new cool cult that you joined, and then you're like, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get you like a figurine from like a garden, from a pile of junk that definitely is cursed and that will cause us to be chased by a giant monster. Like, she knows it's a bad idea.
But
And she still does it. Is that worth
But
it?
it's for Nika's collection. It's the only god that he doesn't have.
Like, my dude, come on. just go to like a hobby shop and get that? Why here? Why in the murder junk pile? Is this necessary?
Well, she does try to put it away, but it's too late. Talos mad.
Too late.
Talos
You done did
smash.
One doodle that can't be undid.
But pretty much what ends up happening is like Grover summons a power line. I was thinking of there's a scene in Friday the 13th Part 6 or Part 7, The New Blood, where that movie's pretty much Jason versus Carrie. And there's a part like that where she like takes power lines and like wraps it around Jason. It's something similar to that, where Grover like knocks him down.
I think that's also a scene in Iron Giant where he like
Well,
walks in the power
that's
lines.
an obvious scene because he's a gigantic robot.
Yeah, that's
There's
true.
also a scene in this movie called Teenage Aliens from Outer Space. It's from the 50s where they fight a gigantic lobster superimposed on the screen where they use power
Oh my
lines.
God.
This is how I know this.
You've just and then do they eat the
No,
lobster?
like the alien creature. I just remember because they showed it in Mystery Science Theater, but I've seen the movie before. It's like they bring out the alien creature. It literally is just a lobster, and then they superimpose it later on because it starts growing. And it's so stupid.
Now I want lobster. That sounds delicious.
I'll have to send it to you because it's so adorable. It's like a lobster puppet they use.
I kind of didn't realize how powerful Grover was. He seems to be more and more powerful every time they have a fight because like he's like telepathically controlling power lines at this point, which is kind of impressive.
Well, I mean, you gotta have to make Grover kind of somewhat powerful a little bit because so far he's been completely
Or else it's kind of
useless and
depressing to have him
depressing.
around. Yeah. Okay, so it is fair that he's getting stronger and better at his job because before he was a little bit useless during most
Great.
fight
Now I'm
scenes.
just thinking about like later on in the chapters, Grover gets so powerful and like someone's like, Jesus Christ, that's Grover Underwood.
Yep, that's him. The great and powerful Grover Underwood, also known as Pan. Headcanon. Anyway.
Please ignore the man behind the curtain.
So this is kind of like a clever fight scene. I think that it's like interesting. It reminds me a lot of there's like a video game. Now I can't think of what it like Fall of the Colossus or something like that.
Shadow of the Colossus.
Shadow of the Colossus, yes. Where you fight a lot of like giant monsters and they always have like a weak spot that you have to attack.
Climb up, yeah.
Yeah, and you have to find, and it's very similar to this because in this case, and I think there is actually one that the weak spot is on its foot. So I wonder if that is inspired at all by any kind of existing mythology. But in this case, yeah, like this automaton thing has like a porthole in its foot, and that's how you can access it and like control it, I guess.
So pretty much there's two options. You can get stomped or you have to get inside of it quickly, very quickly.
Right, of course it has to be in like the most dangerous spot on it,
Well, where would you put a maintenance hatch be? I'd put it there.
I guess. On the back of its leg,
If
maybe?
But that's like the equivalent of having like an on-off switch for a gigantic robot is putting it in the back of its neck.
Right.
Like if you're going to make something like design it, you put it somewhere where it's going to be hard to get out of. It's easy to get in.
Right.
It's just like a weird natural defense thing. I was thinking of Sly Cooper 3. There was something similar to that where you have to fight like a boss that's super tall. You have to climb up like its legs and like knock off like a mask. But it's like things like that where it's obviously it was the design choice. So what?
Yeah, I kept picturing of the Shadow of Colossus video game because it's like very similar. Like this giant creature, it has a specific weakness, and then of course, Bianca's like, I volunteer for some reason. I guess because she feels so guilty about taking the thing for her brother. Which like, you didn't care about your brother before. Why? Why did you choose to do this now, sir?
But yet Percy wants to do it because he wants to be the hero of everything.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to
It's a bad
sacrifice my life for the greater good. And like Bianca pretty much like pushes him away.
Yeah, that's Percy all the time. He's like, oh, sacrifice? Time for me to sacrifice myself?
And Grover's
I'd love to do a sacrifice. Thank you.
like,
Be a
what'd you
hero?
just say about snackerfice? I could go for a snack right now. But
every
pretty much what ends
conversation
up
I have
happening
is
is they're
basically
cornered
that.
and all of a sudden, I love the description they give for Talos. Like he starts to do like the funky chicken.
Oh, yeah, I love that. That's really
It's
funny.
a great kid touch because it's super serious. And then he goes to something that's,
Like, of course they would do
It's
that.
kid
like,
humor.
Make it do like a goofy dance.
you make him do a goofy dance and all of a sudden he starts coming apart. And oh no, Bianca doesn't get out in time.
She's
and it
inside.
crumbles to the
yeah,
ground,
and they can't
And
find
they spend the
her.
remainder of the night looking
The
for
description is
Bianca.
very sad.
And they realize the
Yeah.
prophecy has come true. They've lost a friend
Yeah.
in a land without rain. So B, here's the $1 million question. Is Bianca dead?
Oh, no, I don't think so. No one ever dies in this friggin' book. I mean, people die, but I don't know. Again, it's one of those things where I think there's a certain way in which deaths are written in this series that I usually can tell if it's not a real death. So far, there hasn't been any real deaths. There's been a lot of fake outs. There's been a fake out with his mom, fake out with a few people, actually. No, I don't think so.
Well, we still have obviously one person's going to die by their parents' hand.
I guess, but it doesn't say die. It says lost in the land without rain.
No, what's the other part of the prophecy? There's two parts to it. There's someone's going to be lost in the land without rain, and someone's going to die by their parents' hand.
Die by their parents' hand, yes. So I do think that death can happen, but I think if it was going to be death, it would say death. Lost is a very specific word.
B, you got to remember, he or she who hesitates is lost.
I mean, yeah, she actually did the opposite. Bianca didn't hesitate, and then she did become lost. Yeah, I don't think she's dead. This description is still very sad. The giant crumbled from the top down. His head, his chest, and finally his legs collapsed. When we reached the wreckage, we searched frantically, yelling Bianca's name. We crawled around in the vast hollow pieces and the legs and the head. We searched until the sun started to rise, but no luck. So we sat down and wept. I was stunned to see her cry. Talia yelled in rage and impaled her sword in the giant's smashed face. We can keep searching, I said. It's light now. We'll find her. No, we won't, Grover said miserably. It happened just as it was supposed to. What are you talking about? I demanded. He looked up at me with big watery eyes. The prophecy, one shall be lost in the land without rain. Why hadn't I seen it? Why had I let her go instead of me? Here we were, in the desert, and Bianca D'Angelo was gone. Sad. R.I.P.
Well, it's sad, and now we're going to have the next chapter. Percy Jackson has survivor's guilt.
Basically, I mean, he was going to do it, and then she jumped ahead. I mean, like, he really did volunteer, though, and she just kind of cut ahead because she felt guilty. So that's, like, not his fault.
No. But how's...
I know what's going to happen. I just looked at the name of the next chapter, and I know what's going to happen next already. Oh, poor Bianca. I don't think she's dead, though. It is sad that they think she's dead, but nah. I don't know. Lost is too vague of a word. They would have said dead. They would have said death or something or die in the
But okay, now this is how we place the scene B, is that Zoe starts crying. It doesn't seem like something like... Because remember, with Annabeth, no one had...
Right, she's very stoic.
Well, no, she's very stoic, but remember when it came in the case of Annabeth, no one shed a tear because they knew that she disappeared. And Polly is acting like she stabs its face. It's one of those things where maybe she's dead, maybe she's not. But the most important thing is that another part of the prophecy has come true.
I don't know. I don't think she's dead. That's my opinion.
It's hard because it's really hard when it comes to writing like kids dying in books, because that's like such a Debbie Downer almost a little bit. Like when you have a kid die, because in most kids' stories, a kid dying is like the worst thing you could possibly do, because kids think they're invincible. Like I've seen kids jump off roofs. I mean, I'm a person that's done that before, and they just get back up and just run around. They don't realize until like they're in their 30s, oh, I could die, or worse, be dead, even worse. And maybe she's dead, maybe she's not, but we'll find out next chapter. So B, what is the name of the next chapter?
Next chapter. I have a DAM problem. They go to the Hoover Dam, right?
Damn.
That's pretty obvious.
I mean, damn.
Like,
you don't know which damn I said. Damn.
They go to, you don't know. Yeah, which one gets bleeped? We don't know. Wait, can we say damn?
Yes, we're saying damn, DAM. What are you talking about?
DAM, of course. Yeah, they go to the Hoover Dam.
Yeah.
Duh. That's my guess. That's their next location. There's going to be some sad stuff about how Percy feels guilty and everyone's sad about what happened to Bianca. They're probably going to maybe meet a monster or two. Maybe the soldier creature skeletons will appear again. We might find out some more stuff about what's going on with Annabeth / Artemis. Like maybe there'll be like I don't know, another magic realism dream that Percy will have, find something out. That's kind of the general idea of what I think is going to happen next chapter. Something like that. They definitely have to reckon with what happened to Bianca, even though I don't think she's dead. They're still going to have to deal with that. And then other than that...
Yeah, other than that, there's a lot more that could happen. But all I know is that B, this is not even a spoiler, but the next chapter actually is my favorite chapter in all of Percy Jackson.
Favorite chapter. Wow, you're really hyping it up, huh?
Oh, I love this chapter.
I'm excited to read it.
So much so that if you remember when we talked to Rob, they try to get the scene into the Lightning Thief musical. So you're gonna see one of my favorite scenes.
Right,
Because they even say it in the musical. They say,
but that's
I think it's
difficult to do. I think.
with Drive. They're talking about it's like, if you didn't buy all those damn snacks, I was hungry, and it was the Hoover Dam. But that's just how my brain works. I'm so excited to talk about this next chapter.
Mhm.
For me, I don't want to spoil anything, and I won't say anything, so I'm excited.
Yeah, you don't want to talk too much.
All I'm gonna say about this is
damn.
hot damn.
Or cold damn, or I don't know. We'll find out. I don't think Bianca's dead. That's all I have to say about that. Don't think Bianca's dead. They are still going to be sad about it though for a while, I'm sure. I don't remember the rest of the prophecy really. I have to think back on that. Someone does die. Like unequivocally, they use the word death in it. So, or die. They say die by a parent's hand. But not Bianca. I don't think so. She just gets lost.
Yes. Well, we'll find out very soon.
Very soon.
So, B, did we get any messages this week?
Oh, yeah, we got a few emails. First email is, I love your podcast. Hey, Zack and B. Love hearing your weekly take on one of my favorite book series. You guys are so funny. I've lost count of the number of times that I've burst out laughing while listening on the bus. I love the way you really dissect and dive into all of the little details in the series. Podcast makes me feel like I'm just having a great nostalgia-filled conversation with my friends. Thank you so much for all the hard work you put into the show. Sending y'all mad love from Canada. Oh, what a nice message. Thank you.
That is a very lovely message. Thank you so much from Canada. I love that. I love when people from Canada send us messages. They're always so sweet. My favorite thing, though, about this is that I love that. My favorite thing about this is that our show pretty much is just a good conversation between friends. That's kind of what I love about listening to podcasts.
I mean, this is how we talk anyway. Like literally us hanging out just sounds like a podcast.
Well, I remember your sister was telling us when we were talking about a movie, like when I was at your house, and she was like, oh my God, is there an episode going?
She's like, yeah, this is like a bonus episode of Radio Camp Half-Blood, literally, because that's just, this is just the way we talk all the time. But we're recording it for your guys' entertainment and education, maybe, hopefully.
Hopefully, but we like the idea of, being friends and having a conversation. That's one of those great feelings in the world. Thank you so much for that wonderful message. So I have one that says Brazilian fan. This one's going to be a long one, and I apologize if I butcher any names. I apologize. Hi, Zack and B. I'm from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and I'm a daughter of Athena. First of all, I love Percy Jackson. Since 2010, and listening to your podcast is really amazing. Actually, it's my first podcast. I'm improving my English, and at the same time, I remember how amazing this book series is. Usually when I remember the theme of Percy Jackson series, I focus my attention on growing of characters, so your talks make me think so many different themes I've never actually seen before. Second, my opinion about Riordan's universe, the gods and mythologies coexist. This theme is more explored in the other books. This is all redacted. There are so many gods in other places at the same time. I think all this power is connected with the strength of human belief. Wide and simple, opening up so many possibilities. I also think the Titan's Curse is a mark in the Percy Jackson series. There's a new atmosphere, more dense, intense situations. I think it's the story where they get more outside to help to complete the mission. For example, I hope someday Rick Riordan writes a trilogy about the Hunters of Artemis. Finally, I have a question for you. What is your favorite character of PGO? Zach, please pick one from Heroes of Olympus too. Thanks for making this podcast. Please never stop.
That's rough. Okay. A lot of people always beg us to never stop the show. I feel like this is definitely just an inherently long podcast. Like we're gonna be doing it for a while, so don't worry, you guys. We're gonna be with you for a good long while. But favorite.
I think the reason why people are afraid is because there's so many other.
It's because other Percy Jackson
they peter out after an episode or two. But for us, we like doing it. We're good friends, and unless something terrible is to happen where we end up as brains in jars, we'll still do our show. We'll just be a little more synthesized. Hello, I am Zach. Hello, I am B. Welcome to Radio Camp Half-Blood.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah, favorite character. Oh, geez.
But B, what is your favorite character in Percy Jackson?
Annabeth is a pretty great character. I think she's really interesting and complicated. I think, Annabeth is a really good character. I find I mean, Talia too. Like a lot of like the female characters, I think that they do a really good job.
Is that it, B?
Making them very well rounded and interesting. Same with Clarice. Honestly, I mean, if I had to pick, I would definitely say Annabeth, because I do think that she's like or I don't know, Talia too. I think Talia's backstory is super interesting, like the whole thing of her being like trapped as a tree for a while and like being out of time and like adjusting to that, and the weird bitterness she has towards like, I don't know, being a camper in general, and the complicated like dynamic she has with Zoe. Like there's a lot of like interesting stuff going on with her. So yeah, I think for a while it was Annabeth, and then introducing Talia. They're pretty similar characters in a lot of ways, like strong female characters who have like a lot of weird trauma stuff, and they both have like that connection with Luke that's interesting. So yeah, either one of the, I mean, like Percy's a good character, but I mean, he's like obvious, he's the protagonist. I don't think he's like my favorite character though.
Ooh. For me, it actually has to go to Thalia, just because I love her character and I also love her personality. Just because, you know, she's a woman out of time, and also she doesn't really give two trucks about really much other than, you know, herself and her friends. And really, if I really come to think of it, for me, I love Thalia, but my heart goes to Annabeth. When I was younger, I had a big crush on her, but as an adult, I don't. I appreciate her as a character. Yes, she's a child. When legally, I have to say, from about like 8 to about 14 is when I had like a crush on her, or whenever.
Mm-hmm.
But now I appreciate her as a character, and kind
horrible.
of like
that
how
makes
Rick
a lot
like
of sense,
birthed
though.
her from his brain almost, and how
because
she's a very well-rounded character. I love that about her, and especially when it comes to like, she's pretty much, she wants to kind of like live forever, but through her achievements, not through like achieving immortality. Like that's what she wants, and I love that about her. And she's also very competent. She isn't like Hermione, where Hermione's good at everything except for like two small things that kind of like, oh, she's a mudblood, so this is her flaw. Like, she has to get past this. Whereas Annabeth's a little different. Like, she is unsure of herself. Like, she's smart, but she's smart in only certain things. Whereas like Hermione, compared to Annabeth, Hermione's more of a Mary Sue.
Right. She's more complicated. Yeah.
Well, I'm saying like in comparison to from Annabeth to Hermione, if you look at them, because you know you could easily like, oh, she's the Hermione of the group. Like, not really. Even though Hermione is a great character, that's a completely different conversation. I also love Hermione.
I don't know. I haven't read all
like
Harry
in that
Potter
comparison,
too, so I
I love
speak to that,
Annabeth in the way of she's a flawed character, and that's what makes her a really great character. And to answer the other question about Heroes of Olympus, my favorite character in Heroes of Olympus is Leo. And I'll leave it at that because I can't say anymore because I don't want to spoil B. But Leo has my personality, and also the way he does things and his problem solving is exactly how I do my problem solving. And if I had read Heroes of Olympus first, I would have probably said Leo was my favorite character, but Annabeth is.
Yeah, another email from Dimitri, who says, hello, first off, I love the podcast. I look forward to getting a new episode each Monday. Anyway, I'm rereading the books alongside the podcast. In the most recent chapter, Grover Gets a Lamborghini, I thought of something I hadn't caught in my many rereads of this book. I think the train may have been the Sun Chariot. It travels west. It's called the Sun West Line. Percy notices it only after Apollo shows up. Also, since it carries cars, maybe those are the different forms the Sun Chariot can turn into, as shown earlier in the book. This was just a fun idea that I never thought of before. On a side note, be sure to read the Demigod Files between the Battle of the Labyrinth, Book 4, and the Last Olympian, Book 5, and my favorite. This is important. Happy 1 year, your fan, Dimitri. Is it, like, made clear that it was that? So it's not just a train that's being affected by Apollo, it actually is the car? The chariot?
Thank you so much, Dimitri. And I never thought of that, and that makes so much more sense.
It's almost like, it's not even a theory almost, it's just like kind of fact. You just have to figure it out. Yeah, I think that that's like a pretty obvious theory.
See, that's like one of those nice little Easter eggs where you don't really think about until you've reread a couple of times. Like, that makes so much sense. Like, it's the Sun West line.
It's almost just literally text.
Yes. Yeah. It's not really I don't really think it's a theory. I just think it's a nice little touch. It's like, what is it when you have like a cake and you add like texture to it? It's like that. It's like you're adding like sprinkles. We did get a couple iTunes reviews, and I'm really excited for the first one. Are you ready for this, B? So this one is from Phantom Composer, and this is the best thing since Chris Evans.
We're somehow on the same plane. I don't know how that is, but thank you.
I like how Chris Evans and us are lumped into the same category. I would consider us as cool as Chris Evans' beard, but maybe not all of Chris Evans.
Maybe not all of them. Yeah.
Hey, Zack and B, it's Emily again, and I just wanted to say that I absolutely adore this podcast. I look forward to Mondays every week because of the podcast release. I wish I could have an episode every day of the week because I can't seem to get enough of this. I wish I could just sit and talk to you guys for hours because my young 9-year-old heart, how old I was when I started reading these books, is resurfacing. I can't even describe how enthralled I am with this show. There is so much I want to tell you, and there would be enough time. Sigh. Anyways, I got a blast. Do you guys have an awesome night/day? So that's the only iTunes review that we got for today. Thank you so much for that, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's really nice. God, whenever people tell us that they like are getting nostalgic by listening to our podcast, or like I don't know, it makes them excited to hear a new episode. That just like warms my heart. I definitely feel that way about the SSR podcast. I have like that same experience of being like, oh, this is so exciting, like getting nostalgic about these old books. So I'm really glad you.
That's kind of like with me and like the Duke and Duchess podcast, where I'm listening to when like they're rereading books, and I'm like, fantasy, and like getting like warm and cozy almost. It's really great. I'm
really glad you like the show. And I think that's gonna do it for us.
That's gonna do it for us for today. So B, where can they find you today?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @BKellyGorman, and you can find me on Tumblr at twinpoetry.tumblr.com.
And if you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Suda41. That's SUDA41. If you want to follow our show on Twitter, that's at halfblood_radio. If you want to subscribe to our Patreon, we actually got 2 new Patreon subscribers.
Got 2 new Patreon subscribers. Yeah, so exciting.
So I want to thank our new Patreon member, Maddie. Thank you so much for a $10 donation. Oh my God. I think that's the first person that's going to get a pin.
That's so great. Yay. $10. Yeah, that's the first pin person. So yeah, exclusive, awesome pin. I'm probably going to make it like this week and ship it out. I'm probably going to post a picture of it on the Twitter. If you guys are following me, Zach will probably reblog it or retweet it onto the main Radio Camp Half-Blood Twitter, so you can see what the pin looks like. If you could maybe, I don't know, can be convinced like, oh, I kind of want one of those pins.
Do I have to like slide you a 10
if you're a $10 a month
under the desk
Patreon
to get
patron.
one? That's how exclusive they are. I don't even have one, and I'm a co-host.
That's how exclusive it is. Literally, I don't have one either. It has not been made yet. The design is that exclusive.
Speaking
Only
of that,
one
we actually have
person so far
another
is gonna have
Patreon donator, Sophie. So thank you so much, Sophie, for donating to our show
Sophie.
and keeping the lights on for us. That we really appreciate that. If you want to buy any of our T-shirts, we're going to be having some more T-shirt designs soon. You can go to Radio Camp Half-Blood at TeePublic, and there should be always, for some reason, they always have sales. So pretty much go there.
There's always a sale.
There's always a sale.
Pretty much always.
So it's always 30% off. So go get a shirt. Send a picture of it, and that would be really cool. With like seeing that stuff. Yeah. I don't think we've seen really people cool like rapping stuff other than your mom rapping.
Than my mom, my wonderful mom.
I don't even have one. I'd like to get like a coffee cup so I can drink out of my own face.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, I've kind of put off buying my own merch because it feels a little bit weird and self-promo-y to have a shirt with my own face on it, but I might just do it. I don't know.
I would like to do like a Radio Camp Half-Blood, like an actual like Camp Half-Blood shirt, except it has like very like Radio Camp Half-Blood aspects to it. I'd love that. Or kind of like Radio Camp Half-Blood intern. Well, we'll figure it out. We're workshopping stuff. Any advice for the kids back home, B?
Tell your crush that you like them, I think. Not like Percy, who's very bad at communicating and is awkward around girls. Just be honest. Be like, hey, I like you. Who knows? There should be like fine print being like, I'm not responsible if this doesn't work out for you. But like, you know, it's worth a shot.
We'll make sure to put that in very like small fine print and how they speak really fast.
Offer only valid for and if this doesn't work out for you, then B is not liable for any kind of water splashed on your face or slapping in the face or any of that. Not my problem.
And for me, my advice would be if you see something in a junkyard for the gods, don't pick it up.
Don't pick it up. You guys,
know what?
Actually, yes. If you are walking through some sort of spooky magical scenario and you are the childlike protagonist, do not take anything. Not a thing. Not even a grape.
No, don't.
Not even a figurine. Just don't do it, you guys.
Don't take it. Yeah, no. And also, especially when you're walking in the woods and you hear a sound, it's most likely Shia LaBeouf.
It is. There he is.
So he's running at you with about 20 feet back. He gets on all fours. I'm Zach.
I'm B.
And keep staying mortal.
Bye, guys.
Bye.